Hi, I'm Dan. Welcome to the Airbrush Garage. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, thanks for coming back. I'm still getting a lot of questions on, Dan, I did everything you said and my airbrush still won't spray. Well, today I'm going to break it down step by step on how I clean an airbrush that won't spray. And I can almost guarantee if you follow this procedure, your airbrush will spray. I'm also going to go over real quickly a cup cleaning routine when I'm doing color changes, but more importantly, how to clean it if you're going to let the brush sit, say if you have to, run out for a few hours, or you're going to let it sit overnight. So if you find this type of content interesting, please consider subscribing. Hit that bell so you get future notifications. A couple comments, good or bad, really helps out with the YouTube algorithm. A thumbs up would be great. Don't forget to check out all my Amazon affiliate links down below for the products I use in this video and all my other videos. We just passed 7,000 subscribers. I want to thank everyone out there that has been tuning into the channel and enjoying the channel. And with that, let's get started. All right, so I'm going to be taking a look at 3 different brushes today. What I mean by that is one's going to have a small nozzle, one's going to have a bigger nozzle like on the Eclipse, and an airbrush with a side feed cup. First thing we're going to take a look at is how I clean the paint out of my cup between color changes and if I'm going to store the brush overnight so I can come back tomorrow. And when I'm doing a project with Wicked Colors, and I'm going to come back the next day and I'm going to be working with that particular airbrush on that project, I will store it overnight or even for several days, and I'll show you the routine how to do that. Now I will say if you're using illustration colors, the preferred reducer for illustration colors is water. So if you're going to let your brush sit overnight, just put some water in the brush, put your lid on, just don't let it dry up, and you're good to go the next day. Illustration colors are very forgiving because they're reduced with water. Wicked Colors, on the other hand, dry very hard and are not as forgiving. Keep that in mind. So there's going to be a couple tools you're going to need to do this. Most importantly, a needle reamer. Then you're going to need some brushes, a paintbrush, some paper towels, your reducer. Again, don't mistake this for window cleaner. This is 4012 in here, and I think I had some 4013 and some 4020. Sometimes I mix in. They're just reducers I have on the shelf that I don't use. I use 4011 exclusively to reduce my Createx paints unless I'm using illustration colors. The other thing you're going to need is a garbage can with some paper towels in it. I always have my garbage can down by my side, but I'm going to put it up here so I can demonstrate this for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is, when I'm going to clean this out between color changes, I'm going to take my spray bottle, I'm going to spray some in there. I like to even shoot it a little upside down. Okay, I'm going to take a paper towel, clean out my cup, do a little spray out, put a little more in, do a spray out. Now at that point you're thinking, should be pretty clean. Now, can you do a color change on that? Probably. But if you look really close, there's still a lot of red paint down in there where that needle crosses the hole, right? So what I like to do is put a little bit of my reducer in there, get my paintbrush, loosen it up down in there. Now I'm going to spray this out, and I'll pull the trigger back and forth with my brush right on top of my needle. Wiggle my brush around a little bit. Now it's clean. Now that's clean for a color change or to leave the brush overnight. If I'm going to leave my brush overnight, I take my 4011, put about, I don't know, maybe about 1/4 of a cup in there, put my lid on it, and I'm good to go. The other thing I'd like to do actually is take a paper towel, also pinch the needle and give it a wipe just so you get any kind of residual paint off of that nozzle. Now your brush is going to be good to go for the next day. Now let's assume for a second this brush is clogged. Now you just saw me clean it. I just ran a reducer through it and you're thinking it's clean. This is probably the most asked question that I get on the channel is, I did everything you said, it's clean, and it still doesn't work. So what we're going to do next is, if the brush won't spray, and it's just giving you a really hard time, what you're going to do is we're going to break the brush down. Now this is the Eclipse, and this has the bigger nozzle on it. I'll show you what I mean by that. You can see that brass nozzle. So I just took the nozzle off, and the first thing that you can see, and I'm going to zoom in here now a little bit so you guys can get a good look at this. As I said, we just sprayed reducer through this. It looked all really clean in the cup. And look what we have right here. We have paint on the needle. We've got paint in the nozzle. So imagine if that dried on there. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the needle out. And as if you notice, I pull the needle out of the front. Yes, there's a Teflon ring in there, but I don't like to pull the needle out the back. It's just my OCD. I think you're dragging paint back through the gun. I'd rather pull it out the front. So I'm going to clean off my needle. Spray a little cleaner on my paper towel. Run my needle through. If you look real close, I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but there's a lot of residual paint right here. So what I like to do, this has a nice big hole in it. So what I like to do is I like to take a piece of paper towel, one of the corners, I twist it up. Now you could use a brush for this as well. But on this particular brush, because I can get a paper towel in it, I like to use the paper towel. And I twist it in there a little bit. Put some cleaner down inside. I'm going to go off camera here. I'm going to dump this into the garbage can. You can see the residual paint that came off onto the paper towel. All right, so now we're thinking we're good, right? We're thinking we're clean. So I'm going to take the needle now, and I'm going to go from not the pointy side, the square side of the needle, and I'm going to push it through the brush. I'm going to take my paper towel. We have a nice clean white part here. And look what came off. Now, that's because I was spraying other colors with this earlier. That's not even the red that I'm spraying now. That's like a dark blue because I was spraying blue earlier with the brush. Came off on the needle. So what I like to do is I like to run this needle, again, dull side or square side of the needle, through the brush a few times to pull any of that paint out of there. Now it's the second time I ran it through. I'm going to run it through one more time, and I think that'll do it. So now you know that's clean. You have your little air hole here. You're getting air out of that. That's clean. Needle's clean. That's clean. You have one more thing to clean, and that would be your nozzle. And again, you can see there's paint in that nozzle. What I like about these Eclipse nozzles, because they're a compression fitted nozzle, they happen to fit real nice and neat right into the hole of my reducer. I'm going to turn that upside down. I'm going to squeeze it until I get reducer flowing through it. Again, I'm going to take a paper towel, because I can on this one, and I'm going to get the residual paint out of there, because the needle reamer is going to be a little too small or too thin to clean out the body of this particular nozzle. It is, however, going to clean out the tip of that, which that tip right there on this brass body is basically the same tips that are on the smaller nozzles. So I'm going to take my needle reamer now, and I'm going to put it in through till I can see the needle reamer come out of the tip of the nozzle. And that actually looks pretty clean. All right. So we'll put the airbrush back together, and I guarantee it'll spray. All right, to save time, I broke this gun down off camera, and as you can see, this is the one with the small nozzle. So now you're not really going to be able to get a paper towel in there very well, are you? And the nozzle is super small. But I can see already, you're not going to be able to pick it up on camera, but there's red paint already in there. And I cleaned this out. I put reducer through it. And you could also see the needle has red paint on it as well, right here. And again, totally, sprayed through numerous times with reducer. This is why guns don't spray when you go back to them, because the paint builds up on that and dries. Now imagine you cleaned it out, you thought it was clean, you came back the next day, you put more paint in it, and the same thing happened again, and it kind of just all builds up. Now this is where your brushes are going to come in handy. So what I do is I take the smallest brush that I have, and you can see it's pretty bent up here because I use it a lot, and I stick that into the hole or the front of the brush. I spray some cleaner down in. I'm going to lay a paper towel. I usually do this over the garbage, but I want you guys to see it, so I'm going to lay a paper towel down here. A couple times like that. You can see the reducer now is starting to come out. Unclogged your jam. Get all that residual paint out of there if there's left in it. Again, you think it's still all clean, I'll still take a paper towel here. I just like this little trick. I'll stick that up in the nozzle there, give it a couple turns, pull it out. Looks pretty clean, that's good. You could also see the residual paint that came out of that brush from putting the metal brush inside. So there was still paint, even though I flushed it out with cleaner, there's still paint stuck right there in that body of the airbrush. Now, with the nozzle, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of reducer. I'll either take and dip this in a little cup of reducer and try to get some on here and put it in, or I'll just try to dump a little reducer into the hole. Get my needle reamer, paper towel, grab a hold of it, couple twists and turns. Get some red residual paint out of there already. And now I know it's clean. Same routine, run the needle back through, backwards, wipe it with your towel. Very little light residual paint. And I'll do it one more time. We're good to go. So the last one I want to show you is the side feed cup. I already did my spray out with my reducer, and as you can see, the cup looks or appears clean. But when I take the cup off, again, I'm not quite sure if you can see that, but there's red paint inside that little tube. Now there's going to be red paint inside the inlet for the paint, or I just remove the cup. And there's going to be paint inside here. And again, that's after putting reducer through it. So with the side feed cups, what I like to do is, again, take my smallest brush. That will run up into the cup. Take some reducer. Go back and forth with the brush. Again, I normally would do that over my garbage can. And I can see the red paint that I pushed out into the cup. And at this point, the other cool part about this cup is I can break this cup down. You can't do that with all cups. At that point, I'm going to take my paintbrush and get my paint out of there. And there it was right there. You know, it's just a little bit of paint. But those little bits of paint can really create a lot of havoc when you're wondering why you can't get paint through your airbrush. Now, granted, the paint needs to be thin enough, but those little bits of paint that dry up in your gun can create all the problems in the world. So I'm not going to go through on cleaning this brush. This brush is the same exact way as I cleaned all the other brushes. Steel brush through the front, steel brush through the side. Use your reducers to clean it out. Run your needle through backwards a few times. Make sure it's clean. If you do that and your paint's thin enough, your airbrush will spray. All right, there you have it. It really is amazing that after putting your reducer through it, cleaning it with the paintbrush, looking in the cup, cleaning off the needle, with some reducer and some paper towels, everything looks clean. It's spraying straight reducer. Everything's coming out clean. But it really is amazing that when you take the gun apart and you see what's inside of it, you see what's inside the nozzle and the body of the airbrush, it's no wonder sometimes your airbrush stops spraying or sprays improperly. I'm not saying you got to clean your airbrush every single time you stop spraying. Like I said, I'll do a routine where I'll clean up my brush as I showed you. I'll leave my reducer in overnight and come back the next day. And I could do that for several days. But when I'm going to package that airbrush up and I'm not going to be using it for the next project, or I'm going to have a little time between projects, I'm going to break the gun down, make sure it's all clean. So with that, hope you got something from this video. If you did, again, please consider subscribing, hit the bell, you know the drill, comments, it's all good. We're growing and I really appreciate it. Again, went over 7,000 as of this video. Thank you guys, I really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next video.